Who here is familiar with the term shtuyot? Okay, we got some yeses, we got some chuckles. Whoever chuckled definitely knows what it means. What about shoter? Who knows what a shoter is? Yes, with a test. Shoter. A fool. Crazy person. Shtuyot means craziness. Stupidity. When you call someone a shoter, you're literally calling them a nutcase, a fool, crazy person. What's very ironic is that the very first temple that the Jews ever had, it wasn't in Jerusalem, it wasn't even in Israel. The first holy temple that the Jewish people had was in the desert, in the Sinai desert. And the temple that we had then, it was a traveling temple. It was a portable temple. It was designed, it was made out of separate pieces, and it was designed that we could assemble it and we could use it as a temple, and then when it was time to continue traveling through the desert, we would pack it up and put it on wagons and continue going. And the pieces that the temple was built from, the Mishkan, the tabernacle, this portable temple, the first temple we ever had, was built out of cedar wood, which in the Torah is referred to as atzei shittim. You see the resemblance between shittim, atzei means wood, pillars of, beams of, shittim. Shoter, pillars of folly, pillars of stupidity, pillars of craziness. This seems like a very strange thing for the temple to be built out of. It seems like it's the diametric opposite of what the temple stands for. The temple stands for divinity, for holiness, for godliness. How is it possible that the temple, and it was referred to as a mishkan, the word mishkan literally means an abode, a resting place. This was a resting place for God himself, a resting place for the Creator, a resting place for Hashem. How is it that this Mishkan, the dwelling place, Hashem's home ground, the place where Hashem comes to relax and to be comfortable, his Mishkan, how is it that that could be built out of stupidity, built out of craziness? Something doesn't seem to add up. If we look at the origin of the word shtuyot, shoter, the technical origin of the word actually is that it comes from the word noite in Hebrew, which means to turn, to veer. When someone is acting crazy, it's another way of effectively saying that they are behaving in a way that is unconventional. This person is defying convention. There's an acceptable way to behave, there's a conventional way to behave, there's a way that society expects us to behave. And when we behave that way, it's all good and fine. And as soon as we defy conventions, we behave in a way that's unconventional, we behave in a way that's a little bit different to what's expected, all of a sudden we're crazy. We're a shoter, a nutcase. Why? The word nutcase in Hebrew, shoter, means someone who has turned off the path. Someone who's behaving in a way that's not conventional. Someone who's not following the rules. But breaking the rules or behaving in a way that's unconventional doesn't necessarily always need to be a bad thing. There's behaving like a nutcase. There's behaving in a way that's unconventional, not following convention, because a person lacks the respect for convention and lacks the respect for their surroundings, for their environment. Perhaps lacks respect for Torah mitzvahs, for the Creator, for God, for the universe. And just says, to heck with that all, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to behave in a way that's unconventional. I'm going to be crazy. And that's what we typically think of when you say someone's a shoter or someone's involved in shtuyot, in stupidities. It's not generally considered to be a compliment. If you ever tell something to someone and they're Israeli and they respond shtuyot, if they try to convince you it's a compliment, don't let them convince you very easily. It's not generally used as a compliment. It's an insult. It's saying that that's stupidity. It's craziness. But craziness doesn't need to be bad. Look around the world. Look at what we have today. Look at Google. Look at Facebook. Look at Tesla. Every single one of these things was created by a person or people who said to heck with the rules. To heck with convention. Businesses are supposed to be run a certain way. And when you go to school, you go to business school, you go to college, you go to university, and you learn, you open books, you read a blog, you get emails, whatever it is, you do an online course, these are the rules, and this is how you do it, and this is the system, and these are the rules you follow. This is convention, this is the pathway. And sticking to the pathway generally is a relatively safe option. Chances are, if you follow the rules in your system, and the system, and you're a capable, competent person, you'll do okay. And if someone doesn't follow the rules because they're too lazy or because they don't have sufficient respect and understanding of the fact that the rules are there for a reason, and they just discard the rules and don't care about them, there's a good chance that they're not going to do that well. But you know what? There are people who see beyond the rules. There's being beneath convention. There's being inferior to the rules in the system. That's unconventional, that's shtuyot, that's stupidity. That's what we generally refer to as being crazy. But then there's someone who says, yes, there's a pathway that's conventional. There's a way that normal people go. And you know what? As much as it gives a sense of security, it also limits what you can achieve. And I want to achieve more. If you want to achieve something unconventional, you have to be unconventional. You have to behave in a way that's unconventional. If you behave in a way that's conventional, your achievements will be conventional 100% of the time. It doesn't matter how talented you are. If you follow the rules in the system and you behave in a way that's conventional, the outcomes and achievements will be conventional. It's just the way it works. Breaking the rules and being unconventional can go a couple of ways. It can fall short of convention, but it can also go beyond convention. It can go beyond that which is conventional. It can be crazy. Some of the people who've created these institutions, these massive companies that everybody on the face of planet Earth, well, everybody who has clean water to drink knows what Google and Facebook are. And the people who built those weren't conventional. They said, this is convention, and you know what? Bad luck, to heck with convention. I'm going to go beyond convention. I'm going to think outside of the box. I'm not going to allow my potential to be limited because someone said that this is the conventional way to behave and this is what's appropriate and therefore that's what you have to do. Yes, that's appropriate. And you know what? I'm not going to behave in a way that's inappropriate because it's insufficiently appropriate. I'm going to behave in a way that's beyond that which is appropriate. I'm going to go crazy in the best of ways. I'm going to be crazily productive. I'm going to be crazily effective. And you know what? When you do that, you produce crazily positive outcomes. You achieve crazily incredible things. And the Mishkan was the epitome of this. The Mishkan, again, for God to feel comfortable and to become integrated into physical beams of wood doesn't make sense. It's impossible. Beams of wood are physical. God's not physical. Divinity is not physical. Spirituality is not physical. How can divinity and spirituality and godliness become integrated into a beam of wood? You know how? When it's atzei shittim. When it's crazy. When it says convention's good for conventional outcomes. I want unconventional outcomes. I want to achieve the impossible. I want to bring God into a beam of wood. If you want to bring God into a beam of wood, which is a crazy, unconventional, impossible thing to do, you need to be prepared to behave in a crazy and unconventional way. It doesn't mean to actually just discard any respect whatsoever for convention, but it does mean to regard convention with perhaps a critical skepticism and to say convention's important and it has a place, but I'm not going to allow it to hold me back. And as soon as a person has the recognition of the importance and the place of conventions and of rules and of systems, but is also able to say, now that I understand and respect their role, I am not going to let them hold me back. I'm going to go beyond that. I know what I'm here for. I know what my purpose is. I know what the purpose of the universe is. And if anybody's going to tell me that my dedication to my purpose and my commitment to realizing my purpose and everybody else's purpose. My commitment to that is crazy and my dedication is crazy. You know what? Amazing. Because when I go through a crazy process and I have a crazy commitment and a crazy dedication, then I can create crazy outcomes. Then I can have, I'd say, shittim. I can have beams of craziness, beams of folly, beams that are unconventional, and those are the beams that build a mishkan. These are the beams. This is the behavior. An unconventional, crazy commitment and dedication is what allows something unconventional, which is exactly what it is when God, when spirituality, divinity is integrated into the fabric and experience of a material world, because that is a crazy thing. It's an impossible thing. And if you want to achieve that which is impossible, that which is crazy, you have to be prepared to be a little crazy in the right way. And this is why the temple, the first temple we ever had, was built specifically out of cedar wood, out of beams that carry the same name as a nutcase, as a fool, stupidity, a shoiter. And the Rebbe would oftentimes talk about the fact that as we come closer to Mashiach, as the world comes closer to its purpose being realized completely, which is what Mashiach is. Mashiach is a state in which the purpose of the world has been fully realized. The world is filled with God. Everywhere you look, you just see divinity, you see godliness, you see spirituality. That is the definition of Mashiach. That's the way Rambam defines Mashiach. Mashiach is when we look around, we will see God everywhere in everything, in every object, in every idea, in every entity, in every point in time, in every point in space. And as the world gets closer to a reality in which everything is good, it starts to resemble that more and more. Now, you're not going to get this message from the news, because the people who work at the news and get paid $100 million a year get paid that money because when they freak us out, when they put a title about something's going to explode and there's going to be a nuclear attack, God forbid, and this is happening and that's happening and Trump said this and Pelosi said that and it's all going to collapse and the whole world's going to disintegrate. You know what? People click. And when people click, the news make money. And that's why the people who work there are getting paid millions and tens and hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Because they write things that freak us out and it makes them money. Very simple. But if you look at the numbers, if you look at the data, if you look at the UN research on what's happening, there are less and less hungry and thirsty people in the world by the hour, by the minute. Every single minute that passes on the clock, there are less people hungry and less people who don't have clean water to drink. And when they set out several years ago, 10 odd years ago, with the goal of reducing abject poverty, and a schedule at which they wanted to reduce it, you know what happened? They exceeded their expectations and they reduced abject poverty by half in something like a half or a quarter of the time that they expected to. The world, despite what the news wants you to think, the world is becoming a better place by the minute. There's plenty of pain and suffering, God forbid, in the world. There is. But don't let the news convince you that there's more than there was. There's not more than there was yesterday, and there's certainly not more than there was 100 years ago. Just to illustrate, yes, we're polarized and more polarized than we've ever been, and the world is a crazier place than it's ever been. Do you know what? Think about what the world looked like 100 years ago. I know just from speaking to my grandparents. I'm not talking about the Holocaust, God forbid. I'm talking about just the way that life worked for your average person 100 years ago. Every single family lost a few kids. One died in childbirth, 2 died of malnutrition, another one got an infectious disease, 3 of the sons were killed in war. Half of every family was killed before they even made it to adulthood, and this was regular daily life for your average person. The world's not getting worse. The world is unimaginably, incredibly amazing relative to the way it was for sure 100 years ago. And relative to the way it was 5 years ago, before we were so polarized and divided, you know what? The people who are hungry and thirsty in third world countries don't care how polarized the news makes us think we are. They care that they're not hungry anymore and that they're not thirsty anymore. The world is a better place, and it's becoming better literally by the hour. Collectively, the quality of life of humanity is getting better and better and better. But not just by the day, but literally by the hour. And this is happening because as we get closer to a state of Mashiach, as we get closer to the realization of the purpose of existence, which is a world in which we see the good in everything, we see the divinity in everything, and everything actually expresses the goodness that it has inside. We all have goodness inside, and everything has goodness inside. It's just that sometimes it gets a little messed up and it doesn't come out the right way. But once our mission is done, once we have finished bringing divinity into the world and that purpose has been realized, it's going to come out and the goodness in everything will be expressed. And as we get closer to that, the Rebbe pointed this out time and time and time again, the world is starting to resemble that. As much as people make hundreds of millions and collectively billions of dollars trying to convince us otherwise, the world's getting better. The world is more and more by the hour starting to resemble the state of Mashiach. Now back to the crazy thing. The same is true here, I would humbly suggest. There's a new phenomenon in culture today which wasn't around. The Rebbe never spoke about this explicitly, but it's the same idea. Today, the people who are most idolized by society, by humanity collectively, more than anybody else, you count a handful of the most people that people most aspire to be like and most aspire to emulate. They're all at least a little crazy, and some of them are very crazy. And you know what? Because they're crazy, they changed the face of planet Earth. They revolutionized the human experience within a matter of years. It's unrecognizable to the way it was a very short time ago. You know what? Because they didn't allow convention to hold them back. As the world comes closer and closer to Mashiach, it's starting to resemble the full truth in that ultimate state of existence more and more. The quality of life gets better. And we're starting to get the hang of the fact that being crazy isn't always bad. There's the bad kind of crazy, granted. But there's also a good kind of crazy, and the world's starting to catch up. Thousands of years ago, we built the first ever temple in the desert out of beams of wood that were named after craziness, because it takes craziness to do crazy things. And the world's catching on. The world no longer says, you know, if you're scrolling through whatever you're doing on the internet, and if you have ads that pop up in wherever you are, every once in a while, chances are you'll see an ad that says, young startup disrupts $1 billion industry. 3 people in a garage in Brooklyn disrupt this, and these people disrupt that. The world's starting to catch on that disrupting isn't always bad. Disrupting can be good. It can be the most powerful thing in the world. Being crazy can be the most powerful thing in the world if it's the right kind of crazy. And this is the message, and this is an idea that the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, the Rebbe's father-in-law, talked about. Today was Yud Shvat. And he actually published a Maimer, a Hasidic discourse, that he published to be distributed on this day of Yud Shvat, to be distributed on the day that he ended up passing away on, the day of his Istalkus, the day of his passing. And this is one of the ideas that he talks about there. This is a big part of the Frierdiker Rebbe's parting words, of his parting words to us, are, if you want to build a temple, don't be scared to go crazy. Don't be scared to be a little bit crazy. What does the Torah want in 2019? Torah wants us to get on board and to start disrupting. Torah wants us to have the guts to be crazily committed and crazily dedicated and crazily passionate, and not to let anybody say they can say that that's crazy. And then you know what you say when someone tells you you're crazy? You say, you know what? Yes, thank you for the compliment. Because crazy is in. The reason crazy is in is because the world is catching up, because this is the way that we build the temple.